Hi, Internet. So, an argument that I've been seeing gaining increasing traction lately is the idea that libertarianism, and especially voluntarist libertarianism, is too idealistic, that it's not going to get accomplished anytime soon, and people who advocate voluntarist libertarianism are just sort of dreaming about the amount of change they'll be able to achieve. And I think this is an interesting argument because people who bring it up never seem to explain to you exactly how much of a radical change from the society that we currently have to a new society would be considered too idealistic. So certainly these people don't think that any change in people's attitudes about political institutions and attitudes and how they relate to one another is too idealistic. Obviously, societies change, political institutions change, individuals change, philosophies change, and throughout history there have always been people pushing for that change in the intellectual sphere, in the political sphere, etc. So it would not make any sense at all, and I don't think that anybody is claiming that any idea that promotes change from the society that we have is too idealistic. But they do say that libertarianism is too idealistic, and they never quantify how far we're allowed to imagine changes in society before it becomes too idealistic. I really don't think that it's a very good argument. In fact, I don't think that it's a criticism of libertarianism at all. It's not just that I don't think it's a very good criticism of libertarianism. I actually think I can demonstrate that it is not a criticism of libertarianism. So I want us to imagine, for example, that we are existing in society several thousand years ago, and we make the assertion that treating people as inferiors because they're from a different tribe or a different region or a different race than you is morally wrong. You should not treat people as inferiors just because they're not from your ethnicity, your tribe, your race, your gender, etc. And I think people back then, they wouldn't just react negatively to a statement like that. They actually wouldn't be able to comprehend it. I think that for most people, maybe not for the intellectuals, but for the majority of the populace several thousand years ago, the idea of not being tribalist, of not being racist, probably just wasn't even something they could imagine. Almost certainly they just had lived their whole lives thinking of their clan, their tribe, and then the other people, and that is simply the mentality that they were in. But the statement that it's morally wrong, if you accept in fact that it is morally wrong to treat people as inferiors because they're from a different race, if you accept that, then the statement that it's morally wrong is still true, even in the distant past, even in a time when people can't understand it, people don't know how to process it, racism is everywhere, tribalism is everywhere, it's ingrained in society. Even then, the statement that we should still treat people as individuals and we should still respect that just because someone is different than us doesn't mean that they're inferior, the statement is still true. The fact that we're thousands of years away from people actually comprehending that does not make the statement any less true. And so what we see is that today we live in a society where, even though yes, there is definitely still racism, still tribalism, still many problems we have to work out, a lot of hatred in the world, we've come a very long way. And we can see that there is not nearly so much racism as there used to be, that slavery has been abolished in the Western world, that people are equal before the law in most societies, not in all societies unfortunately, but it's catching on. That idea that was so far beyond anyone's comprehension thousands of years ago has actually come most of the way to fruition now. For the most part, people are equal before the law in Western society. For the most part, people understand what it means to treat others as equals and not treat them as inferior beings just because they happen to be from a different race. And so the moral component has been true all the way through. It's always been true that you should treat people as individuals. You should not generalize about them based on collectives. You should not be violent towards them just because they look different from you. That moral statement has always been true. Even though the people making it thousands of years ago were not understood, no one could understand them, they thought they were crazy, they thought they were too idealistic, too idealistic, right? So you see where I'm going with this. Furthermore, the statement, it is possible for people to treat each other as equals, not be racist, not be sexist, not be tribalist, not discriminate based on ethnicity. It is possible to treat people as equals is true today, but it was also true back then. Even if no one in the world did treat people as equals, I mean, probably someone did, but even if racism was literally everywhere, everyone was racist, nevertheless, it was possible to treat people as equals and not be racist. And so, libertarians assert that it is both physically possible and desirable to abide by libertarian ethics, which means free minds, free markets, not using aggressive force against people, you know the drill. So they claim it's possible to live this way, and we should live this way. Now I argue that all criticisms of libertarianism have to attack one of those 2 points. They have to either attack the idea that it's possible to live by a libertarian code of ethics, or they have to attack the idea that it's desirable to live by a libertarian code of ethics. And the claim that libertarianism is too idealistic actually doesn't seem to attack either one of those. Because I don't think that the people that are saying that libertarianism is too idealistic really mean that you can't abide by libertarianism. If they really mean that, then I'm a living counterexample, because I abide by libertarian ethics. I don't initiate force against people. I respect people's property rights. I do not claim intellectual property rights, whatever that means. I don't control people's thoughts. I don't tell people what to smoke. I don't tell people how they can spend their money. So I abide by libertarian principles. So if they're claiming that you can't abide by libertarian principles, they're objectively wrong, because I do, and there are many other people in this world who do. If they're claiming that you shouldn't, they should say that instead of claiming that libertarianism is too idealistic. The statement libertarianism is too idealistic almost sounds like it's conceding that you should be libertarian, but saying you're too weak or too stupid to actually do it. It's basically an insult to the moral character of people. It's the claim that it's possible to live freer, it's desirable to live freer, but you're idealistic if you think people ever will live freer. Well, I don't accept that. And I don't believe that you or anyone else can actually make a claim like that, because throughout all of history, people have had wild and crazy ideas that people said, no, that'll never happen, that's totally ridiculous, and then it happened. Airplanes, the end of racism, just all of these things, the internet, society has changed in tremendous ways. To say that any view is too idealistic is really just giving up the argument and saying, yeah, you're right, we should live like libertarians, we could live like libertarians, I don't really have any good reason not to, I'm just going to call it too idealistic. Well, throughout all of history there have been dreamers, and there have been people that have envisioned societies that did not come to fruition until thousands of years later. I'm proud to say as a libertarian that I'm one of those people, and if that makes me too idealistic for you, I'm not sorry.